Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k in the Necrons channel. We're continuing today with our mini Know Your Foe series for the faction focus coming out from Warhammer community, from Games Workshop, and today we're going to be doing AELDARI. So we're going to be going through the army rule, going through the detachment rule, anything else of interest within that article, and trying to break down some weaknesses and at the very least look out for some concerns for Necrons when we do actually finally get to play in 10th edition. So let's start off with the army rule, which is Strands of Fate. So Strands of Fate in 9th edition, if you were the AELDARI player, you were getting 4 dice per turn if you were playing Strike Force. There were ways of getting more dice, there were ways of re-rolling the dice. Now for 10th edition, this has slightly changed. And at first glance, it looks like it's seriously nerfed, but there are ways to get it back on track. So if your army is AELDARI, the start of the battle, so not every turn, start of the battle, they're going to be rolling 12 dice, 12d6, and they're going to be the dice they're going to use throughout the entire game. Now, if they wish, they could re-roll any of these dice. In fact, it says all of these dice. I think you've got to do all of them. You can't just keep what they want. They've got to re-roll the whole thing. But if they do choose to re-roll, they're going to have to take a dice away, and they can keep doing that until they're left with 1 dice if they didn't like the results, but that would be kind of silly. You probably need to keep as many dice as they possibly can. Now these go into their fate dice pool, and they can effectively be substituted for the following things, such as advance rolls, hit rolls, battle shock tests, saving throws, charge rolls, wound rolls, and damage rolls. Very similar to Miracle Dice for the Sisters of Battle with Adeptus Sororitas. It's very similar with a few differences. So yeah, it is pretty much like the Sisters of Battle. In the previous edition, every single dice roll meant something. So for example, I think a 6 was the invuln save, was it? I might be completely wrong on that, but one was the hit roll, one was a psychic test, one was the wound rolls, one was the charge rolls. They all meant something. Now it is just whatever you roll. If you roll a 6 on one of the dice, you keep that 6 and you can use it for any of these things. And that again could be kind of saving a lot of CP with command rerolls. If they roll really low, they may as well just roll it again, right, until they are happy. Now I'm going to continue talking about this rule before getting into the detachment rule, because there are some ways of actually boosting this rule. The first is from the Farseer. Now the Farseer has an ability, it's a psychic ability called Branching Fates, once per turn, so that's potentially 5 turns. When you're using a fate dice, substitute a roll made for the model in the unit, but that's within 12 inches of the Farseer, and substitute it for a roll of a 6. So even if it was a roll of a 1, which is pretty much redundant, with the Farseer there within 12 inches, it's now a 6. So he's pretty powerful for that. There's also other ways to farm these dice. With Guardian Defenders, the start of their command phases, if they're on an objective, they get to roll 1d6 and add that to their fate dice. And that's the Defenders of Fate ability. Potentially there's going to be more units that have this ability, because it just says units from your army with this ability. So you would presume that it would just say Guardian Defenders if it was just Guardian Defenders, right? So it says units with this ability, so there probably will be more units that have the same ability to farm these fate dice. So yeah, that's going to be a key thing for them. So I would definitely highly advise taking out the Guardian Defenders, although that could be a bit of a bait, if you like. They're trying to make you shoot your attacks against the Defenders, and I'd also try and get rid of those Farseers or anything else of the equivalent abilities that could do stuff with dice. So yeah, that is the army rule. As for the detachment rule, it's called Unparalleled Foresight. Effectively allows AELDARI units army-wide to re-roll a hit roll and re-roll a wound roll for every single unit, whether it's shooting or fighting. So re-rolling 1 single hit roll and re-rolling 1 single wound roll whenever they're shooting or fighting. So that is good because it's going to interact much better with minimum units. So what this is, in terms of weaknesses, we've not really spoken much about the weaknesses yet. If we were to look for a weakness, you can expect the AELDARI player to bring min units, which has kind of been a thing for them anyway, all along, but they're pretty much expected to use it if they want to make use, or maximum use, of this detachment rule. Because if they've got 1 unit of, one large unit, they're only going to get 1 reroll to hit, 1 reroll to wound, but if they broke that unit into minimum units of 2 or 3, or whatever the minimum is, they're going to get 3 lots of those rerolls, of the hit rolls and the wound rolls. So they're kind of multiplying how many they can actually do by simply dividing the units into minimum units. So that's how they're going to play out. It's how they've always played out anyway, but that is something that we can at least expect them to do. But yeah, other than that, there's not really much weakness. To be honest, I think the AELDARI preview from Warhammer community is probably the best so far that I've done. Now I am a bit behind because I've been doing the leaks. If you've noticed, I've done a couple of videos with the leaks that came out, so I'm a little bit behind. But so far, from what I've seen of all the articles that are releasing these faction focused things, I think Eldari looks the best. It's going to be very hard to defend. You can't do anything about it, in fact. With the Strands of Fate, what are you going to do? They get 12 dice straight away. You're going to have to target the Guardians, which are their, you know, that's their giveaway units anyway, right? It's a bit like Arcanoptic Scarabs. There are giveaway units, so they don't mind that. All they do is lose some extra fate dice, but by that stage, you've already wasted a lot of your attacks on those weaker units. And yeah, being able to reroll, hit roll, and wound roll is definitely going to interact much better with minimum units, so expect that too. So guys, that is it from me today for the Eldari Know Your Foe, Mini Know Your Foe. We will be doing full Know Your Foes once we have the index, and of course, once they get their codex, we're going to go hard into that too. But other than that, guys, all that's left to say, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.